Well, hello ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome back to the Yellow Bus Guide Garage and the driving portion of the CX7, 2008 Mazda CX7. And thought we'd go for a brief drive, describe what it's like. I think I said in the previous video we bought this late 2008, maybe early 2009, and it was a demonstrator at a local dealership here in Louisville, and I think it only had like 10,000 miles on it or something like that, and we got a really good deal on it. This thing's stickered for 27, and we got it for just under 20, and now it's got 111,526 miles on it, and it's been reliable. And have the biggest problem we've had with it, my wife was in West Virginia visiting her sister, and the air compressor locked up on her, and she was just like a mile away from my sister-in-law's house. The air compressor locked up and threw the belt off, and so the car sat for the entire time she was there. My brother-in-law looked at it and tried to work on it and got a belt to replace it, to replace the broken one, and he realized the compressor was locked up solid. It wouldn't turn at all. So he wound up renting a U-Haul two-wheel car hauler, where you can roll the car up on the front wheels up onto it, and then you hitch that to your pickup. And he towed this sucker all the way home. Matter of fact, he towed it to that garage right over there, and that garage put a new air compressor on it for us, air conditioning compressor. But yeah, he dropped what he was doing and towed our car all the way back home, which I was really appreciative of. But yeah, it's reasonably quiet inside. You do have the typical four-cylinder kind of raspy sound. You know, it's not as refined sounding as, say, a V6 would be, like in the CX9. I think all the CX9s now are turboed four cylinders. They used to be V6s, 3.5 liter, I believe, and they're very quiet and refined, and also very expensive compared to this. And it's a bigger vehicle. It has a third row. It's this car with another row added and more luxury items. And like I said, this one's the Sport, and this comes with tilt cruise, power seats, power windows, power sunroof. It has a Bose sound system, which sounds excellent too. It won't come over very good on this on the video, I'm sure. Anyway, I can't play much because then I'll get dinged for copyright. More fun with YouTube. Then the touring adds more luxury. I think the interior materials are nicer. And then the Grand Touring, you get exterior. The only things I can see is you get fog lights in the bumper. There's chrome door handles. I think there's a little more chrome trim on the exterior. And the interior is, the materials are much nicer. Everything you touch, like the door panels and all that stuff, it's a lot of soft touch stuff, and it's really nice. But it's also a big jump in price. So the vastest materials one right now, the vastest majority of these that you see on the road are sports, and man, they're equipped nice as it is. I think you have to go out and step up to the touring to get things like leather and things like that. But anyway, where this vehicle really shines is this direct injected turbo engine. It's got relatively high compression, 9.5 to 1 for a turbo engine. But the beauty of it is, with direct injection, you're not compressing an air-fuel mixture, so you don't run into the problems of detonation. It works more like a diesel engine, where you're directly injecting the fuel right into. Let's see. And that was 60 to 80 and wasn't even full throttle. direct injection, you're able to compress the air mixture in the cylinder with extra boost without what I'm trying to say is, because it's direct injected and you're not compressing the air fuel mixture like you would on a conventional turbo, you don't have as much or near the risk of detonation or pre-ignition that you would have with a conventional setup, because you're injecting the fuel after or during the compression cycle, which means you can have run a higher compression ratio, static, 9.5 to 1, which means you get better off the line, no boost, low boost performance. So there's not so much lag when you put your foot in it to go. There's not so much. There is lag in this engine. It's noticeable, but it's not as bad as it was in the early generation turbos. If you've ever gotten to drive one of those, where you put your foot down and then there's a long delay before anything happens. And also, you can feed this engine regular fuel without risk of damaging it. The computer will dial back the power. It'll pull the timing back, and it won't have near the performance that you would have otherwise. But it is recommended that you run premium. We run premium in this, and you get much better fuel economy too when you run premium. The engine's running as it's designed to, and being a 4-cylinder turbo, this doesn't get stellar. It's not a 30 mile per gallon on the highway vehicle. It gets mid-20s if you're taking it easy. You know, these Mazda, this particular engine was designed more for fun and performance in mind rather than economy. And then when this vehicle was built, Ford had owned part of Mazda, so they shared some technology. And this engine, the basic architecture, is found in the EcoBoost line of engines that Ford produces in their world vehicles. So they're all over Europe. They're produced all over the world, and that's where Ford got their technology from. They jointly developed it with Mazda, and it's primarily the block, I believe. Ford has their own cylinder head on it, and I'm sure all the accessories. This has Ford parts on it. I said something about having an oil leak in the last video, and when I got the oil cooler out of the car, it has Ford Motor Company stamped on it. So it's a Ford part. It's a stupid design. I don't understand why they just didn't put a cooler up by the radiator. A couple oil lines run up to a cooler. I mean, it's idiot proof. But on this car, on top of the oil filter housing, there's a cylindrical housing that has coolant running through it, and the engine oil is pumped through there to cool it down, because turbos run hotter, and you also need oil is used to cool the turbo bearing, not only to lubricate it, but it also picks up a lot of heat. So a cooler is absolutely needed in a turbo, but there's a gasket between the turbo, or the cooler and the oil filter housing, which is prone to failure. And that's what this one did, and it was dumping oil all over the place. I thought it was an issue with the oil filter cap, which is plastic, but it turned out to be the gasket. The gasket's, I don't know, $10. If you take it to Mazda to fix it, they want to replace the entire thing, the oil filter housing and the cooler and all. It's like $700 plus labor. I replaced the gasket in here. Took me about 4 or 5 hours, and a $15 gasket. So yeah, you do the math. It was a pain in the ass to get to, and it was difficult to do laying on your back in the driveway on ramps, but I didn't have to drop $700 to do it. Other than that, the car's been wonderful. She loves it. And like I described earlier, I don't like the visibility here. There's this A-pillar is super thick to accommodate, the steeply raked windshield, and I don't care for it. Oh, the 6-speed transmission is non-serviceable, which means there's no way to service it. There's not even a drain plug that I can find on it. There's no filter to change. And my old school way of thinking, that just seems wrong. But it shifts as well as it did the day we bought it. The shifts are crisp and quick, and downshifts are smooth. So, yeah, can't argue with what works, I suppose. But when you want to pass somebody like this guy, no problems. No problems whatsoever. And like I said, I've run V8s in this thing and outrun them. And it's surprisingly fast. I mean, it's one of the fastest vehicles we've ever owned. We had a Mustang before this, and I believe this is faster than the Mustang was. It's a lot of fun. And it's been reliable. And the build quality is pretty good. I'm not going to say it's fantastic, it's pretty good. The interior quality is decent. And it stood up to time. I mean, the car's 10 years old, and I don't know if you can hear or not, but there are no rattles, no squeaks in here. There is a little bit of rust beginning to show up underneath, and the rear door in the pinch seam at the bottom, there's some rust that's beginning to show up. And I suppose that's to be expected. I mean, you know, something that's a decade old. But I like Mazda products. This is, you know, we've had two. My last one was a Mazda 6. And I now own a Nissan Frontier, and we're going to be taking a look at that vehicle in the future. But anyway, just wanted to let you take a look at this. This is a fairly interesting vehicle. I thought maybe you might like to take a look at it. And thanks for coming around. Like, subscribe, ask, hit me up with questions if you like in the comment section. And be nice to your bus driver, and I'll talk to you later.